Well, anytime you're dealing with a junkyard, you're dealing with all kinds of different hazardous materials. There's materials in the actual construction of the vehicles, the tires, the oil, the gasoline. There's just a myriad of different things in an automobile junkyard that can really get you.
The volunteers on the SMP&G Fire Department knew they'd be dealing with a variety of materials when they responded to this junkyard fire, but they didn't realize how much of it they'd be up against and that just getting into the area would be so difficult.
Unfortunately, salvage yards aren't built to accommodate fire apparatus. The roads that went up through the salvage yard were very narrow. They were also not improved roads. They were rough, clay-based roads, and some of them you would need almost a four-wheel drive to get up to, or a four-wheeler. The access roads were also narrow, which made it difficult for the positioning of apparatus. The apparatus in this case were able to make it to the side A of the building, but because of the extreme amount of radiant heat and the smoke conditions where the smoke was banking down coming out of the building, apparatus positioning was a key concern for the incident commander and the operations commander. So they had to back the apparatus away from the building, which meant longer hose lays.
The main fire building was approximately 60 by 120 feet and constructed of metal framing. It stood approximately 25 feet high and contained tiered shelving with hundreds of stacked pallets. Firefighters didn't know exactly what else was inside the building. They were ordered to wear full protective gear and SCBA.
Some of the things we had to deal with inside the building were all kinds of different things as they relate to cars. For example, batteries. Batteries have sulfuric acid in them. When it's hit with water, it reacts and causes a problem. We had magnesium automobile parts where when they get hot and start burning and you hit them with water, it actually makes them burn hotter because the magnesium and the water react with each other. We had tires. When the tires burn, not only do they produce real black, nasty smoke, there's also a runoff, a greasy runoff that gets all over the place.
Holding the fire to the main building would require a lot of water, but there were no substantial water sources on site.
Because of the location of the salvage yard, which was located on a mountaintop in a rural part of our fire district, the facility itself was isolated. Therefore, water supply became an immediate problem to the incident commander and the operations chief, Captain Sturgill Jones. They immediately realized that they would need tanker support because the closest hydrant that would have any sufficient flow to sustain the operation was 2 miles away. They immediately requested mutual aid companies to bring tankers to assist on the scene, and 6 additional departments responded with tanker apparatus.
The first engine moved as far into the junkyard area as possible and was supplied with water from this tanker. Farther down the mountain, 2 engines set up as stationary pumpers to relay water from these tankers.
The tankers that were supplying the primary units that were working on fire suppression and exposure coverage had to lay long supply lays, in some cases 500-600 feet. And because of the positioning of it, we had to use multiple supply lines coming into the primary apparatus.
All additional equipment and manpower was staged by the office building here, which stood approximately 400 feet from the main fire building. The fire action plan wrote off the main fire building as a complete loss, but responders still had to deal with the hundreds of vehicles and tires surrounding the building.
Firefighters literally had to climb over salvage cars, which, posed hazards with jagged metal, broken glass, radio antennas getting caught on SCBA straps and SCBA hoses. There was danger of being cut. There was also the danger at the same time. There were several small explosions within the building as different containers of flammable liquids ignited. And during the initial phase of the operation, the initial water application on some magnesium engine parts and transmission parts caused those parts to explode, which meant the initial attacking companies had to back up on the fire and reposition hose lines. At one point in time, because of the radiant heat, 2 hose lines had to be abandoned, as well as a ladder position, and we ended up losing that equipment.
Incident Command called in bulldozers to pull the cars and tires away from the radiant heat.
The vehicles that were exposed were sitting next to the building. I'm talking inches, some were feet, 5-10 feet away. We had to physically take bulldozers and pull these cars away. We had tires that were stacked up 5 to 10 feet in the side C of the building, which was a driveway area. We had to take a piece of heavy equipment and remove the tires that were burning, extinguish them before we put them in the good pile that wasn't burning, and the others we just pushed it back into the fire and tried to contain that part of it.
With all of the debris and hazardous materials stored within this junkyard, firefighters are proud of the stand they made. But fighting a fire in a salvage yard is a dirty, messy job, and the volunteers sacrifice some personal protective gear and fire hose in the process. They say you need to consider this as part of your pre-fire plan.
I would strongly encourage any fire department that has a salvage yard or other hazardous materials facility in their area to do is go ahead and make plans now for what you will do in case your bunker gear becomes contaminated. In this particular incident, we had 10 sets of bunker gear that were severely contaminated with used motor oil, grease, and other hazardous materials. And we worked with the fire department's insurance carrier, Volunteer Firemen's Insurance Services, and they were really excellent. They aligned us up with National Safety Clean in Pennsylvania, and we were able to send our gear off to be decontaminated, and National Safety Clean sent us loaner gear. That's something that a fire department may not take into consideration, especially with tight budgets and not being able to afford extra sets of turnout gear. But our fire department could not afford to be without 10 sets of bunker gear for its first out firemen. So I would strongly encourage a fire department to make plans ahead of how are they going to replace equipment if it's lost on a fire? How are they going to decontaminate bunker gear? How are they going to get special equipment that they need, such as bulldozers and bulldozer operators? Line all those out before. That's sometimes part of the pre-planning process that's forgotten. A lot of times we just look at the building, what are its contents, not the aftermath of the fire. And I think that's a real important consideration to keep, is what to do after the fire.